Hi there, this is Kevin from MaximizingEcommerce.com, and I like to help people start and grow e-commerce businesses. And in this particular video, we're going to talk a little bit about understanding Amazon's algorithm and how that all plays out and how to better rank products organically. So if you're looking to get into Amazon and you want to understand how to get products to sell, you got to understand the algorithm. So with that getting started, the main part really to understand in all this is how the algorithm works. And I think you got to have a certain mentality of how the algorithm works. For one, you don't want to think of it as, well, how am I going to game the system? If you go into it thinking, how do I game the system? Probably going to end up doing something that could get your account shut down, and probably is not the right long-term solution. Like maybe you can get sales, maybe you can get really high sales in the short term. But the problem is, if you think too much on, okay, what are the little tactics to use today? And even if they're perfectly legitimate tactics, they can sometimes change the next day. And, recently they made the change a few months ago that incentivized reviews, meaning you could give away reviews before, and as long as the person said that they were giving an unbiased review and you just asked for an honest review, it was no problem. Now Amazon's come out and said that is a problem. So that tactic no longer works. But if you think just long term, what does Amazon want and how can what you want come together synergistically? Meaning, how do you come together that it's a win-win for both parties? You're going to be in the right frame of mind of making good business decisions for yourself, as well as making good decisions for Amazon. And the two are going to work together. So if you can think of it as you're there working together with Amazon, it's going to work out pretty well. And a lot of other systems that use algorithms, if you just use that mentality of what is it they want and what do I want and where do the two overlap. So there's a saying that goes, you can have anything you want in life as long as you help enough other people get what they want. And that's by the late, great Zig Ziglar. And if you've not checked out some of his stuff, check him out on YouTube. He's no longer with us, but he's got a podcast that still carries on. A lot of good information out there. Highly recommend his stuff. So, understand now, what is it that Amazon wants? Well, think of it in two buckets. They want sales. They're a for-profit entity. They are in business to make money. They want to make money, but they don't want to do it at the expense of hurting their customers. So they want happy customers. So what do you want ultimately? You really just want sales and you want happy customers. So it's not like your goals are at odds with Amazon's there. So how do they get happy customers? So if you ever watch videos and interviews with Jeff Bezos, he talks a lot about wanting to be a very customer-centric company, almost being the most customer-centric company there is. And they have a lot of data, and they try to make sure that they create a great experience for their customers. And one of the things they do is the experience on their website. So they're very protective of making sure they have a good experience on the website. So how do you translate to that? Well, as a seller, making sure that you have good quality products that meet whatever promises you're making. So if you say it's a blue widget with a stainless steel handle, whatever that widget ends up being, then make sure that that's truly what it is and that it's not damaged. If you're saying it's new, make sure it is new. Don't sell something used as new. So just making sure that people get what they're being promised and that it's a good quality material. And that's going to translate also into having good ratings and reviews. So the ratings would be for the products, think of it this way. You're going to have the rating and reviews for the products themselves, and you're going to have feedback for you as a seller. And you want to make sure both of those are good. And as long as you have good, 4+ stars, as a seller, hopefully 5 stars, then you're helping Amazon have what it wants, which is trustworthy sellers selling on its marketplace, selling good products. So if you think of it from that standpoint, you're gonna make Amazon pretty happy, and their algorithm is going to reflect that, and what products it puts up ahead are going to reflect that as well. So what is the main sales metric that Amazon looks at? And really the big thing is going to come down to conversions, which is the percent of people who click on a listing who end up purchasing off of that listing. So they go out and they find a listing, something that's interesting, something on that digital catalog, so to speak, and they see information about it and they say, yes, that's the product I want. They click add to cart, they put in their credit card, they vote with their wallet, so to speak, and they make a purchase. So that is a conversion. Now, that's going to be probably the most universally known part of the algorithm. There's a lot of theories on what works in the algorithm. I don't think anyone really truly knows the whole algorithm. If you think about it, if you were to call someone at Amazon, chances are they're not going to know. And even if they were in a job where they were the ones coding the algorithm, chances are they don't truly 100% know how that translates into the real world. So as a seller, you probably have a good grasp of just seeing testing and kind of having theories and talking to other sellers and seeing what works and what doesn't. You're going to have a good sense there. Whereas, like I said, the people that are, coding at Amazon, the ones that might actually be dealing with the algorithm, they may not truly know how it all works in play. Because maybe like in theory, it works a certain way, but maybe when actual customers are clicking and doing things, it works a little differently. And, like any big company, not everyone knows every part of everything in the company. And the algorithm is a big part that's probably very proprietary. And I will venture to say very few people have true access to how it actually works. They probably have a good general idea. Just as sellers, a lot of sellers have a good general idea, but no one truly knows. But at the end of the day, if you think of it from the standpoint of they want sales, and sales, especially online, come down to conversions. So if you think of it from that standpoint, it's going to make a whole lot of sense. So conversions come down to being a function of a few basic elements. One is going to be impressions. So when you go online and you search, and we'll do an example of this here in a moment. So if you go online onto Amazon and you search cat toys, whatever comes up, it's an impression for all those different products. So it might have 12 on that sheet, on that first page. I mean, they're constantly changing how many they have on a certain page, but let's just pretend there's 12. Items come back. Some are organic listings, some are sponsored listings, which are essentially ads that someone bid to be on that page. So all of those will have an impression show up. If you click on one of those and you go to their page, now you have what's called a session. So a session is a page view. So you went onto that session and essentially you make a sale, now you count as a sale. Now, that's a bit of a funnel there. So for every, and this is not a perfect number, but it's a good gauge of what it hopefully should like. So out of, let's say, 100 impressions, if they're organic and they're well optimized, there might be 5 or 6, and this could be optimistic, but it all just kind of depends on the product. But there might be 5 or 6 sessions, let's say. So maybe out of 100 impressions, 100 times it came up in search, 5 or 6 times it was clicked on. And of those, maybe 1 sale. So that would be about a 15 to 20% conversion rate off of the sessions. Now, impressions come down to, they want to make sure, going back to the example of cat toy, that dog toy doesn't show up. So they want to make sure that what's showing up to the customer is relevant. Because at the end of the day, and you've probably seen this yourself before if you've ever been on Amazon or any site, you search for something and you're like, wait, what is some of the stuff that's coming back? Well, that's a bad experience for the customer. So they're always looking to make sure that whatever shows up is the right thing to show up. And there's ways that I've seen people do it, that they're manipulating the system or they're bidding in the wrong keywords. Don't play that game. Think again, long term. You're trying to make sure that you're helping Amazon achieve its goal of happy customers and sales. And if you figure out some way to game the system so dog toys shows up when people are looking up cat toys, it's the wrong people. It's the wrong intent. When people are searching, they have an intent of finding a certain product. And if they find a different product, they're not going to become an impression to becoming a session. So they're not going to click on it. And then they're certainly less likely to become a sale. Or if they do click on it, to go from an impression to a session, it may just be out of pure curiosity. But again, they're not going to vote with their wallet. So if you think of it from a standpoint of how do you have a good impression to session ratio and then session to sales ratio, you're gonna basically be giving Amazon what it wants, and they're going to reward you for that by giving you more organic listings. So let's take a look at this. So if we're over here on Amazon, so hypothetically speaking, let's say we were going to look up French press, coffee maker. So we got these different listings. So these here that are sponsored, someone paid for those. And you see wide ranges of what people are bidding on here, so to speak. So there's anywhere from 22 reviews to over 5,000 reviews. Now, reviews, no one truly knows how a review affects the algorithm. Like, does it directly affect the algorithm, or is it more likely to create what they call social proof? Meaning, if you're thinking about buying a product and you're like, well, I'm not really sure which one to buy, and let's say you got this one at $10.99 and this one at $9.99, that's the budget you're looking to spend. Even though this one has more reviews, this one has a higher star rating. So if that's one of the factors you use to make a decision, you might be more likely to click on this one, which I won't click on it because then they'll have to pay for that my click, which I just want to put good juju or whatever you would say out into the universe. But at the end of the day, you're going to look at this and say, oh, well, I would rather have something that other people say is or if you're the customer, you'd probably be more likely to say, I want to have something that's other people say is a good buy. So this one here has 4.8 stars out of 1,400. So you could say that's probably a pretty good one. Now, maybe a different design than you're looking for. So maybe you might come down here and take a look at some other ones. But all these ones that don't say sponsored on it, these are ones that came up what they call organically. So someone's not paying for these. Now, it comes down to Amazon's trying to find what are the best matches here. So when I typed in French press, it's returning these here on what we're going to call the first page, because I can scroll down here longer. There's a lot more than 12 on this page. It goes back to, you don't always know how many you're going to get, but I could go over here to the second page and it's going to be different ones. So these are ones that didn't quite go as high in the algorithm. But French press, there's a lot of French press sales on Amazon. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this is a product you would do for your first time out. Very competitive, but you can start seeing it's different ones are showing up than showed up on the first page. So Amazon's more likely to show up on the first page, or in this case, even the second page, ones where they think it's going to be more of what people are looking for. But as I start going down here now, it looks different than what I had originally looked for. Now, what I mean by that is, let's look at this one here. This looks completely different, whereas a lot of these other French press ones are the type where you got this little handle here and you push down on it and that's what makes the coffee. Kind of a manual thing. Now I'm starting to get into like the replacement pieces. It's just different things are showing up. Coffee is starting to show up now. So as you can see, like it's just a different, some products that are coming up. Sometimes they're testing. So if I was to come back an hour later and put in the exact same keywords, different things are going to come up. So you can see now it's things completely, well, I wouldn't say unrelated, but like the filters that you would use in it are coming up. A cookbook. So now that I'm on page 3, I think, 3 it is, it's a completely different product coming up. So hopefully that makes sense. Now, sometimes when you type in a similar product but use a slightly different keyword, you also get different things coming back. So if I was to put in coffee press, which is going to come back with similar options, but they're probably going to be in different order. So for whatever reason, people end up buying slightly different ones. So I can assure you some of these are the same ones that might have been on the first page. There are times that some of these were not on the first page when we were looking at it before. But going back to, sometimes you don't truly know what it is that's going to show up, like this standing desk. Like, that has absolutely nothing to do with a coffee press. So going back to gaming the system. Now, somebody might have said, well, I can get cheap clicks for coffee press, and maybe because it's a higher priced product that they can get people to buy, but it's kind of tricking people. So that's going back to, people might not be happy with that. And so this would have a lot of impressions to get a session. So if someone did click on it, they might just be curious. But if someone who's looking for a coffee press is probably not going to just buy a $250 standing desk. I mean, think about it from your own standpoint. So, and even if this works for this particular product, I don't know anything about this product. I just happened to see it there. It's a good example of, you want to make sure that if you are bidding for a sponsored keyword, so you can pay for these keywords, you want to make sure you're intentionally going after keywords that you intended to. Now, if you have experience doing sponsored ads, you'll learn sometimes your stuff shows up. And even if it's, you gave them a keyword, there's both manual and automatic, which is a whole different topic. But depending on how it is you're finding keywords, whether Amazon's finding them for you, you give the keywords to Amazon. Sometimes you'd be amazed at what you show up for. So maybe that's not something that person was going for, that seller was going for. They just happened to be showing up for coffee press. Maybe there's something in their description about you you press a button, and the word press was in there, and there's a spot to put your coffee, and then Amazon is testing it out, saying, oh, well, can we get people to click on it and buy it? They're constantly doing these little tests to make sure their algorithm is feeding what people want. So, for example, using the example before of cat toys, now you see all these cat toys. So using my analogy before, if you had bid to have a sponsored product for dog toy, you'd be less likely, especially unless it was something that worked for cats and dogs, but chances are you probably wouldn't get people to click on it. And if you did, they probably wouldn't buy it because they're looking for stuff for their cat, unless they happen to have a dog and it was an impulse buy. But you don't want to think in terms of impulse buys. So hopefully that starts to make sense as far as you want to make sure that you have a product based on the title. So if I click on this, now this is not a sponsored ad, so hopefully it starts to load there. So Amazon is going to look here in the title, and then what we can't see in the back end is you can put in search terms. So maybe they put in cat toy. Maybe they put in kitty toys. So you can see here, cat toys variety pack for kitty, 20 pieces. And this is what the #1 bestseller that comes back for cat toys. So they're basically utilizing cat toy, variety, kitty. Like they're going after a few different, like it could be toys for kitty. Like they could probably show up here as well. In fact, let's test that out. Because the most important words that Amazon's algorithm is going to look at are here in the title, and then in the back end where you can't see, you can put in some additional keywords. Then the next important, and this is all speculation and theory, as I was saying before, but it's probably going to be these right here, what are called the bullet points, and then down here in the description. Now, they didn't put a lot in their description. I'm kind of surprised that they'd be that high up and not have put more in the description, but let's just try that, toys for kitty. And, oh, completely different stuff came up. So they did a pretty good job optimizing for cat toys. Let's try toys for cat. Because Amazon has just learned after, all kinds of different searches. Now, you can see Maybe Amazon hasn't figured out, because maybe not as many people search for toys for cat as maybe they do cat toys, because they got these toy caterpillar trucks, which my 2-year-old son would absolutely love. But if I was buying for a cat, that wouldn't necessarily make sense. So cat toys, they've kind of understood. Oh, it's because it's also coming up in toys and games. Depends on the category. So let's look at toys for cats, all departments. Oh, there we go. That's the one we were looking at before. So you could see a lot of it comes down to how people are searching for and what comes back. So even though I kind of messed up my own little example there, it does show Amazon's algorithm is going to know based on whether I'm looking for all departments or a certain department and the keywords I'm looking at. So, and again, they know the keywords that a product would make sense for based on if they were to show it to people here, are people buying it? So here in this organic listing, they're looking at the title and they're looking at the back end keywords to see if this is something we want to put up there. And then what's happening also is if somebody clicks on this sponsored, which they paid to be here on this first page, but they're going to get credit because it goes back to, what does Amazon want? They want sales and they want happy customers. So a customer could be perfectly happy buying something off of this sponsored listing here and say, oh, this is a great thing here for my cat. They click on it and they buy it. And then Amazon's going to be more likely to show it the next time around under an organic listing. And maybe it doesn't make it to the first page, but maybe it makes it to the second page. So someone looks through here and they say, well, that's not for me. And then they click on page 2, and then maybe they're more likely to find what they're looking for on page 2. And maybe it came up because it was in the it was on the sponsored listings on page 1. Someone clicked on it and they buy it. So at the end of the day, Amazon doesn't seem to care, as far as I can tell, all that much if someone buys from an organic listing or from a sponsored listing. And sponsored listings can help feed into being able to get your product to show for organic listings. Because if you put it up there, you're not going to be on the first page, chances are, especially for competitive keywords. Sometimes you can be on the first page pretty quickly, but chances are, it's not, especially if it's not going to be a competitive keyword. So again, hopefully this is starting to make sense of how it all kind of comes together. And no one truly knows exactly how their algorithm works, but this is a very good example of how it works. So again, using that framework of what does Amazon want? They want happy customers that are getting what it is they're looking for. And you think of it from that standpoint, you can have pretty much whatever it is you want because you're helping other people get what they want. And that's both Amazon's customers, which are ideally your customers too, and making it so that you get what you want, which is the sales and the happy customers that come from purchasing on Amazon. So hopefully you found this video helpful. And if you did, I would kindly ask if you could do us a huge favor. And if you could leave us a little thumbs up. So if you go down below, click the little thumbs up, as well as hit subscribe. And if you could, hit the little bell so that we can notify you when we have a new video that comes available. And if you have any questions or anything that you've tried before with Amazon and working with their algorithm, or just, like I said, any questions that you might have or comments or feedback, please feel free to leave them down below in the comment section. Promise to do my best to read them and also do my best to respond to them as much as possible. And if you're looking for any more exclusive tips, head on over to www.maximizingecommerce.com and sign up for our mailing list. I'd be more than happy to include you whenever we send out additional tips and resources that will help you as you maximize your e-commerce journey. So thank you for making it all the way to the end of this video, and have yourself a wonderful, wonderful, successful day.